Hey, you have some nice cards. Gimme. So I was sitting at a place to eat with a friend of mine, and he mentioned that there was a commander he wanted to build, but not in the way that the commander seems to want to be built. The commander was Captain... I ain't pronouncing that name. We're going to call him Captain My Captain for reasons. But anyway, Captain My Captain here. This guy right here, he wants to be the commander of a horrors deck. He gives your horrors menace. When a horror deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. And at the beginning of your end step, you can choose an artifact or creature from an opponent's graveyard and put that card on your battlefield if it was put there from their library that turn. Now, obviously, this is a textbook case of a tribal commander, but he did not want it built as a tribal deck. He wanted it built as a more thematic deck, and there are two options we can take here. Either we can go with pirates and stealing because, well, pirates steal stuff, or we could just go with raw stealing. I'm going to be honest, I tried building a draft of this deck with pirates as the main theme, pirates with stealing, but it turns out Dimir Pirates with Stealing doesn't do as well as Grixis Pirates with Stealing, so I ended up leaning further into just the raw thieving abilities instead of, well, any piracy-themed things whatsoever. So you've got a commander who really likes stealing shit from your opponents, and that is going to be your theme. He is a pirate after all. So for our core strategy, we do want some horrors, and ideally we want those horrors to have some kind of evasion. Several of the horrors we have access to do have this. Dalthy Horror has evasion, it's got Shadow. Changeling Outcast has the ability to not be blocked. That's already a pretty good form of evasion. Mind Leech Mass is a horror that not only can steal things from your opponent in his own right, so he's very much on theme, but he's got Trample, and with the commander he'll have Menace. Honestly, he should be able to make it through. Mind Leech Mass is then superseded by Silent Hall Creeper, a card that can become a copy of Mind Leech Mass. This horror can't be blocked, and it becomes a copy of any other creature on our battlefield after it swings for a bit. So honestly, just attack with it, give it the 1/1 counter so that it can trigger the commander, and then turn it into something big like the Mind Leech Mass. Then we have something else that's big, the Consuming Aberration. A horror that is normally only okay, but in this deck, our commander will give him Menace, so he will be able to make it through, mill our opponents by a bunch, and then, of course, be able to give us a lot of resources from them to steal. His power is based on the number of cards in people's graveyards, after all. Speaking of milling, I'm just curious, what is more thematic than having a card that not only mechanically does what the deck wants to do, but in a deck with a pirate at the helm has a fucking Kraken in it? Gyruda, the Doom of the Depths, not only mills cards from everybody, not only can steal a card from any of the cards milled so long as it has the right mana cost, but it's a goddamn Kraken in a deck with a commander that's a pirate. That is perfect. He's fantastic. Let's also run King Narf's Betrayal to make everybody mill and steal their cards, Cruel Somnophage to make a single person mill and then give us a smaller version of Consuming Aberration, Mind Rack Harpy, who can make everybody mill every single turn, Ruin Crab, who can make everybody mill so long as we've got lands to throw on the ground. Then we have Teresian Mindbreaker. I didn't know this card existed. Apparently, it makes players mill half their library anytime it attacks, and it's got Unearth, so we can reanimate this card if we ever need with his own ability. This is nutty. Then we have the Mind Skinner. It can't be blocked, and when it deals damage to an opponent, the damage gets converted into mill, making them lose several cards and letting our commander steal their best cards and put them on our battlefield. Because we are focusing on the commander a lot, we're running a Giant's Amulet and a Swiftfoot Boots, and of course the upgrade section will have some stuff to protect the commander even further. With all the milling we're doing, we should also be running some reanimation. So a Victimize to reanimate 2 things, a Quilling Rebirth to reanimate 1 thing twice, and Ever After to reanimate 2 things, and Endless Obedience because we can use this to steal cards from our opponent's graveyards, a Boneyard Parley because it's Fact or Fiction for the graveyards, but it works with everybody's graveyard. So we could just take the best pile of cards from all the players' graveyards and then make one sad sap opponent figure out which one we are reanimating. Unseal the Necropolis will make everybody mill a bunch of cards, obviously triggering our commander, but also allowing us to get 2 creatures from our grave back to our hand. Extract from Darkness allows us to make every player mill 2 cards, and then we can reanimate a creature from them, potentially getting us 2 reanimates if we are lucky. Then we have the Bond of Insight, which will let us get some of our instants and sorceries back to our hand, but it also makes every player mill 4 cards when we cast it, which is absolutely perfect for what our deck is trying to go for. And since we have the Reanimation, we can run cards like Deluvian Primordial, which say, steal the 3 best spells from our opponent's graveyards when he comes out. And of course, his brother, the Sepulchre Primordial, who can steal the 3 best creatures from our opponent's graveyards. Then we have Scion of Darkness, which can steal a creature from a graveyard every time it punches. Gonti, Lord of Luxury, which can steal the best 4 cards from an opponent's top of their deck. Mind Flayer, which steals any creature on the board. Thief of Sanity and Night Veil Spectre, which do what Gonti does, but repeatedly so long as they can keep punching the opponents in the schnoz. And then of course an Elder Brain, which is a horror that already gets menace and can steal all the cards from a player's hand whenever we damn well need it to. This thing is fantabulous. It does everything our deck wants to do, so long as we're able to reanimate it so we're not paying full price for it. This is going to be a tempo swinger for us. Every good deck needs its draw engine, and we are no different. So we are going to be running a bunch of cards that allow us to dig through our deck. We are a semi-reanimator deck, so we're going to focus on cards that can let us discard cards. Wharf Infiltrator is a horror that can also discard us cards, perfect for doing what our deck wants to do in every single vein. Thought Courier, Merfolk Looter, Vohar Vidalian Desecrator, and Obsessive Stitcher are all also cards that allow us to draw and discard, putting reanimation targets in our grave. And of course, the Obsessive Stitcher and Vohar can be used to redo things from our grave in their own right. And because we have a focus on combat, because we want horrors and we want various other cards to punch our opponents to win our games, then we're going to make sure that Bident of Thassa, Reconnaissance Mission, Coastal Piracy, and Grazilex are going to be some of our main pieces of draw. They draw us cards anytime we manage to make face with an opponent. Then we have Military Intelligence, a card that will give us a card draw every time we attack with 2 or more creatures. And then we have another horror, Forgotten Creation, a card that says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand, and if you do, draw that many cards. It also has Skulk, so it's hard to block, and we can use this to trigger our commander. Honestly, it feels like the theme with this is effectively a pirate who did his best getting his ragtag crew together, and now he's got a bunch of horrors that are all he's got. It's Pirates of the Caribbean. It's just Pirates of the Caribbean. We're stealing all kinds of shit. It's just Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, I'm not going to lie, we're going to be a little scant on removal and interaction, because ideally, we should be able to get some removal from our opponents. So we're going to have a Negate as a counter spell, but we're also going to run Thought Collapse and Didn't Say Please, because these also mill our opponent's cards, putting them in their graveyard, potentially allowing us to steal those at a later point. Amphid Mutineer is a pirate that can turn other things into salamanders, making it very easy to turn off problematic cards, especially commanders. Grisly Spectacle can blow up any non-artifact creature, and then it mills our opponents, which is exactly what we want to do, because it triggers our commander. Hostage Taker is a pirate that steals things. I really don't need to say anymore. Feed the Swarm can blow up enchantments or creatures, and Eldest Reborn makes everybody sack creatures, makes everybody discard cards, and then it makes everybody a prime target for us reanimating a card from their graveyard. We're also going to run the Board Wipes Necromantic Selection, because this one allows us to reanimate creatures from graves as soon as it does its thing, so it does steal cards. And because we are milling lots of cards, let's use a Singularity Rupture as the other board wipe, because psychic damage from milling your cards is oh so sweet. Our commander does cost a hefty bit, so we are running a little bit more ramp than normal. And not in the amount of mana rocks. I think the amount of mana rocks is fine, but the fact that we're running not only a bunch of 2-mana mana rocks, but we're running cards like Everflowing Chalice and Worn Power Stone that allow us to get just a little more mana to get to our commander a little more consistently. But aside from these guys, we're also running the 2-mana rocks of Charcoal Diamond and Sky Diamond, and then of course Prismatic Lens, Mind Stone, a Guardian Idol, Isle, and, well, that does it for all the 2-mana rocks. We're also running a Wayfarer's Bauble because it does give us access to lands from the deck, one of the safest ways to ramp, and an Honored Heirloom so that our opponents cannot use the cards that they get in the graveyard when we mill them. We'd rather be able to turn that shit off. We're going to be running 10 islands and 8 swamps as our lands, with our untapped dual lands being Command Tower, Darkwater Catacombs, River of Tears, Tainted Isle, Choked Estuary, Sunken Hollow, and Exotic Orchard, with a Dimir Aqueduct as a tapped land, along with a Path of Ancestry, since we can use this to scry every once in a while, and a Temple of Deceit to get an early game scry. We're going to be running a bunch of fetching lands as well, so we're running an Ash Barrens to get whatever we need out of the deck, Vibrant Cityscape, Escape Tunnel, Evolving Wilds, and Terramorphic Expense, as these are all the same card, and a Myriad Landscape, as it's a land that allows us to ramp while also being a fetching land. Past that, we're running some utility lands. Nephalia Drown Yard can make players mill, so our commander can work even without a board of creatures, Port of Carfell to give us yet one more way to reanimate cards, Duskmantle House of Shadow because it allows us to select a card to take from an opponent's graveyard and put on top of their library, which we can then use to throw away so our commander can do its thing, and Rogue's Passage so that we can make sure that our stuff can make it through if things get dicey. And with that, that's everything in the deck, so now all we gotta do is talk about how to play it. All right, we have an opening hand here that has a way to ramp, a few lands, a single counterspell, and a Consuming Aberration. It doesn't have any moves, really, but, like, I think I'm willing to try it out. Let's go ahead and draw. It's an extra land. Again, not super thrilled about that, but we're going to tap, get the Wayfarer's Bauble out, and then go to turn 2. We hit another land. That is unfortunate. Let's go ahead and crack the Wayfarer's Bauble, go into the deck, get ourselves a swamp, and then hope for the best. Hopefully we don't hit another land. And we drew an Honored Heirloom, which is not a land, thankfully, but it is still a card that doesn't help us a ton. But let's play a Port of Carfell, pay 3. Let's get that Honored Heirloom out. We can at least get our commander out next turn. If we don't get another land, we'll be happy. We draw a Thief of Sanity. Okay, now we're starting to cook with gas. We can use that very, very well. Let's go ahead and play a Terramorphic Expanse, and let's tap 5. Let's go ahead and get our commander on. Do we want our commander out? No. We want a Consuming Aberration out. So we want the Consuming Aberration out earlier because we wanted to be able to swing in and do its thing. Let's crack the Terramorphic Expanse, go into our library, yank out another swamp, and then pass to our opponents. Moving into turn 5, let's go ahead and play an island, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's get the commander out. The commander will give the Consuming Aberration Menace, assuming that there's one person who has only one card on their board. Let's go ahead and use the Aberration, the swing, and trigger the commander. We're going to get the mills and then steal a thing from their graveyard. If we get a Mana Rock from the grave, let's see here. If we get the Mana Rock from the grave, then we can play Thief of Sanity. If we get a creature from the grave, then we can't do that. I'm okay either way. Let's go ahead and go to turn 6, Rogue's Passage. Let's pay 1, 2, 3. Thief of Sanity's out, and then let's pay 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's use the Rogue's Passage to force the Consuming Aberration through. People are definitely going to be setting up blockers to deal with Menace now, and we just milled a bunch of cards, so the Consuming Aberration is going to be able to hit for like 8 or 9 at this point. So let's go ahead and make sure that he's unblockable so we can hit and get us another thing from our opponents. Then we move to turn 7. We have a Bond of Insight. We can use this to set up everybody's graves instantly. We have a counterspell in our hand. I think the right thing to do is to continue to sink things into the Rogue's Passage so that our Consuming Aberration is forced to go through, and then we just hold up the counterspell in our hand in case our opponents do anything we don't like. Swing with Consuming Aberration of the Thief of Sanity, we gain access to all the cards that our opponents have. We can steal a bunch of cards from their grave, we can steal cards from the top of their deck with Thief of Sanity, and we can just keep on casting things that they own. Now, the problem with this deck, the issue we run into, is that it is very, very hard for us to figure out what cards our opponents have. When we're goldfishing a Thief deck, we will always run into those problems. So all we can do is accept the merits of stealing some cards being good enough. Like if I go again and I draw a new hand, this new hand does not have the ramp, but it has the Thief of Sanity, it has the Wharf Infiltrator, it has King Narfi's Betrayal, it has Grazilex. This is another really good keepable hand. It gives me the ability to dig through and do stuff. So we can go like, here's the Vibrant Cityscape, go away, view library. Let's go ahead and get a, nope, we need an island. And we're going to make this as fast as possible because, again, we're playing Thief. We have no way of knowing what our opponents are going to have. Let's go ahead and play Swamp, pay 2, Wharf Infiltrator. Next turn, Tainted Isle, pay 3, Grazilex, hit, draw a card. Next turn, Escape Tunnel, crack, go into Library, yank out Swamp, and then pay 1, 2, 3. Play Thief of Sanity, attack, draw a card, and then on the next turn, we are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's Captain, swing with the Wharf, draw a card, steal a card from an opponent, swing with Thief of Sanity, steal a card from an opponent, and now we're just off to the races on stealing shit from our opponents. We can keep on doing that for as long as we need. We can play Choked Estuary, show them this island, pay 1, 2, 3, and say, hey, here's King Narfi's Betrayal. Every one of us is going to mill 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, and we will be allowed to cast Elderbrain next turn because of King Narfi's Betrayal. Let's see here. You may cast spells. Nope. We can cast this Victimize, because with the Victimize, we can get rid of the Wharf Infiltrator and summon the Elderbrain and the Silent Hall Creeper, which means we'll be able to do all kinds of madness to our opponents now. Honestly, this was a better hand with a better setup than the previous one, but in both scenarios, we are relying on cards that are unknown from our opponents. So we do have to be careful about that. If you're upgrading this deck, the first thing I would do is put more efficient counter spells in. Cards like Drown in the Lock and Offer You Can't Refuse will make it far easier to play some of your more expensive cards without really running into too many problems. Then we can go ahead and upgrade the mill package. Cards like Mind Grind, Nemesis of Reason, and Glimpse the Unthinkable, and Mind Crank will allow us to rip through our opponent's decks way faster. Psychic Corrosion, Maddening Cacophony, and Zelic Sanity Flayer can all do this as well. They honestly do a fantastic fucking job of ripping through our opponent's library. Then let's make sure that milling our opponents benefits us a ton with cards like Memory Plunder that can cast cards from our opponent's graveyard, and Breach the Multiverse, which can mill our opponents by a lot and then steal cards even if our commander's not on the board. Then, for all the cards we've thrown in our opponent's graveyard, I think cards like Rise of the Dark Realm and Sheoldred would be able to help us steal those cards as well. And, well, I think Lightning Greaves needs to be in here. We are a deck that relies on the commander a lot, so every option you have between protection spells and counter spells that you can have to keep the commander alive is going to be an important thing for you to lean into. So that's where I would sit. And honestly, that's everything I've got on this deck. We are leaning super heavy into stealing cards. We are trying to make sure that we are not leaning so heavily into horror tribal like most captain decks tend to be. And honestly, I think you should have a fun time with this deck if you like casting your opponent's cards. But I think there's another commander that's going to do a little better at casting our opponent's stuff if we want to do another video on, say, Gonti or Felix. There are other ways to go about this strategy now besides just captain that are incredibly fun. Jaleva's also really fun. There's lots of ways to do this, honestly. But that said, if you do like this deck, then make sure to head over to the Moxfield link in the description below and go ahead and select Mana Pool and click Buy Now for the deck. Once you do that, it'll populate the deck into your cart over on Mana Pool. Once your card is populated, then go into the description of the video and go ahead and click this link right here. This is my Mana Pool link. It'll take you over here. If you have not used Mana Pool before, then you will get a $5 off on your purchase. If you have used Mana Pool before, then it still does support the channel and what I do. Either way, thank you very, very much for checking out my video. Thank you for checking out the sponsor of the video. And honestly, I hope to see you all in the next one. I've made the unfortunate mistake of making all fan art canon, and you guys use that to make a ton of doppelgangers of me that try to ruin my life. So why not go ahead and celebrate that cacophony by picking up the new channel playmat over on Fourth Wall. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the video.